imagine what it must have been like in those moments more than 500 years ago when Columbus and his men first encountered the Indians of the Caribbean.
What went through each side's heads as they saw each other for the first time?
As you'll see in the next CNN story, whatever the emotions, the meeting set off a series of events and exchanges that changed the world forever.
A kind of Noah's Ark lies here, a Spanish caravel that sank in the Bahamas 5 centuries ago, one of a bridge of ships between civilizations newly introduced, bearing the dowries for the wedding of 2 worlds.
All the products, all the peoples, the ideas, the good and the bad, the whole thing comes over and only over those ships, like this ship.
The first exchange was knowledge of each other's existence. That was the last even trade. Indian gold went east, rapacious Europeans went west. So did rats, disease, but also wheels. This ship was riding a homeward current.
We're looking for dye wood, Brazil wood. We're looking for cochineal and indigo, which came from Honduras and from Mexico or New Spain. We're looking for the tobacco that first came from northern South America. We're looking for the bullion items which came from Peru and from Mexico.
You could call it theft going the one way and imposition the other. But some of it was harmony. A counterpoint of cultures, enriching all. The trade cut many ways. Indians tend grazing stock introduced by Spaniards and Portuguese. Cattle. Spanish-style ranching did to the Caribbean what it had done to Spain.
In 1519, one of the king's agents writes back to the king reporting on the island of Hispaniola, which is where Columbus had his first colony, saying that this once was a lush, beautiful land, and Columbus describes it as such. He says, now it is a desert. This is in the space of a generation.
Horses returned to lands whence their ancestors had vanished before history. Indians had made do as they do now when they don't have beasts of burden. For the Spanish, a steed made a caballero, a gentleman, a knight, a conquistador. Horses helped subdue the Indians, broke loose, spread wild, and later helped Indian warriors get just a little bit even. Christianity's missionaries had a mixed record, and they gathered a mixed flock. From the many-colored congregations of Brazil to what remains of the Carib Indians, their old religion lost like everything else. Transplanted Spanish language and culture now embrace more than 300 million people, 9 times the population of Spain. The conquests changed not only history, philosophy, and ecology, they changed breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The concept of pizza may be Italian, but the tomatoes originated in South America. From the Americas came maize, peppers, peanuts, sweet potatoes, string beans, cocoa, a market basket the world now takes for granted. From the wild apothecary, quinine, and a shelf of other medicines, but not right away.
The trouble was the Europeans were so focused on looking for gold and silver that they overlooked the other benefits of the Americas.
Gold is most excellent, wrote Columbus. Gold is treasure. But it was the root of fleeting benefit and lasting evil. While another root, dirty and humble, moved the earth. With potatoes, men could settle unpromising lands like the Urals of Russia. European farmers liked this Peruvian import, 4 times more nutrition than the grain they could grow in the same land. Storable in the ground, away from barn-raiding armies. Potatoes swelled the population of Ireland. Then, when the crop failed, swelled that of North America. In the Americas, too, an import changed the population pattern. Diseases, even childhood diseases that the Europeans could shrug off, took a toll of the Indians that is hard to comprehend. Take only the lowest estimates, and today's Native Americans are the survivors of tens of millions who died. Had they lived, the United States might, like Bolivia, have an Indian majority instead of a tiny minority. Near extermination of the original inhabitants from disease and overwork meant crisis for planters who'd cut down rainforest and needed labor to cut down sugar. The answer was slaves from Africa, 10 to 12 million over 4 centuries, over 2 continents. Huge numbers died, packed into ships. The survivors added their pieces to the mosaic. Slavery stung the consciences of some Europeans, as the Indians had pricked their imaginations. 20th century Western society is quite accustomed to half-naked bodies on a beach, but to Europeans emerging from the Middle Ages, the first sight of the people they encountered was something to think about. One can only imagine what the Indians thought.
Tiny little hairy white people who had been confined in small spaces, wearing lots and lots of clothes, smelling like God knows what. Are these people? What are these creatures?
Europeans had the same questions. One way of thinking was that here were either depraved humans or subhumans, undeserving of consideration by God or man, though quite suitable for slavery. The opposite school of thought that these were children of Eden, close to God, uncorrupted, noble savages. In the beginning, the English philosopher John Locke was to write, "All the world was America." And while it did little good to the noble savages themselves, some thinkers of Europe, weary of feudalism, autocracy, corruption, and duplicity in power, were impressed by the equality of men in some Indian societies, the member's voice in the governance of the tribe. And in time, those ideas migrated back.
There's been a very subtle influence, I think, throughout, certainly North America, of adapting and adopting Indian values, not only in terms of freedom, democracy, but also for care for the environment and things of that sort.
It's not to Romans or Vikings that Boy Scouts look for their woodcraft. And though in both Americas, Indians still pay a high price for clinging to their ways, the race between salvation of the environment and its destruction is at least on. The exchange was not just across the Atlantic. For 5 centuries, the turning world has been stirring the racial, cultural, and environmental kettle, alloying victor and victim. There is no going back. Richard Blystone, CNN, London.
In a time when air travel, television, and the internet connect even the farthest reaches of the globe, it's hard to imagine what it was like when truly separate worlds first came together in the Americas.
The result, however, was a complex brew of good and bad that has had lasting consequences for cultures around the world.